Take your CJ7 all the way to 11. Jeepin' with Cool Guy.
What do you say we do some axle work? We're going to work on the AMC 20 rear axle. First, we need to take off the brakes. So we're going to take off all those brake components. As far as the rear axle is concerned, to get to the inner hub and all that other fun stuff, you really kind of need to get rid of all of this wonderful brake component pieces. You're going to need a couple tools. You need one of these. This is the shoe spring release. And then this doohickey. I mean, that is one wild piece. You essentially use the end spring release, which is, I don't know what you call this technically. Put it over the top of the pin here. Then use it as like a crowbar, and you just turn it over to where that notch catches on the inside of the spring and releases the spring. And you do that with both of them. And how cool is that? I mean, that's a handy dandy little tool. Love that. Whoever came up with this one, brilliant. Remove the springs. This spring over here goes to the actual parking brake cable, which rests in here and goes down to a hinge underneath here. And that just comes out. That's connected to a plate below. Then you can take out that spring. It's a matter of just kind of getting it oriented. Then get out this sucker. And all you do is you press down, you push this, whichever one fits this actual shoe spring, you push down and rotate. Because there's a little notch inside of this plate cover. Once those shoes are released, once that pin's released off of the shoes, this whole thing can just fall apart. So there's a whole bunch of components in here that are holding it all together. So be careful when you do that. Also, there is a hinge down here which holds the brake shoe in place. And as you can see, it's connected by a lower spring. And then also in between the two brake shoes is your adjusting rod. The back shoe actually holds, has this extra bracket arm that holds the parking brake cable in place. So that is just notched in there. Take that off, and then you need to take off this washer, this retaining washer, and then this whole arm comes apart from the actual shoe itself. Other pieces that are in here is your separating plate, or hinge, whatever you want to call that. Then you've got your cylinder, your brake cylinder in here. These are just pins that are put in place. I'm going to replace this whole thing. And then there's this retention plate that holds the springs in place that we took out earlier. Hey, I have a mallet. Let's see if that works. Okay, perfect. There you go. So you can get all these pieces as part of your brake job. Happy, happy. Now let's take off the parking brake from the wheel hub. Okay, here's the challenge. Parking brake cable. How do you get this piece out? This is actually a 3-pronged ring and holds the parking brake in place. And you have to be able to compress all 3 of these prongs at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a hose clamp, slide it over the top of it, and compress it that way. Now, is this the best way or the brightest way of doing this? Probably not. And there's a whole bunch of tools, I'm sure, that are out there to do that, but I'm just being cheap. So, once you get your hose clamp in place, you get everything screwed down, I'm going to try and force it forward and then slowly release it so that it lets go of the teeth as you slide it through. Once you get that pulled out, however you wind up doing it, you can see what kind of a pain in the ass it is. But what you want to do is you'll want to bend these back out a little bit just to kind of reapply that tension ability before you put these back in. Last but not least, for the rear brakes, you need to take off the brake cylinder. This is a 1/2" bolt, 2 of them. One, 2. And your cylinder kind of comes out a little bit. I don't know how this actually is supposed to come out. So let's start with just the top one, the grease fitting there. I think that's the one that's holding us up the most. I don't know if they're all this way, but this one at least is 3/8 of an inch. Yeah, okay, so that gave me enough room to actually pull that out and rotate it. And there's your cylinder. Here's your 2 pressure pins. So do that on both sides. Now you've at least removed your rear brakes.